You've all been asking, Rachel, ONYX Storm Part 2, when? And I said June, hopefully. And then June came and went and I didn't do it. Here we are in late July and I'm finally getting it done. This is ONYX Storm Part 2, full breakdown. Settle in, get a beverage. We're gonna be here a while. Unless, God willing, a dragon comes out and roasts me so I don't have to talk about this book anymore. Where we last left off was this. They did get the stone, but the stone has also been drained of life. If the king doesn't accept that, then this will all have been for nothing. And Mira's like, this was sitting next to the necklace. And it's a note that says, Violet, just a reminder that while I want you to come of your own free will, I'm capable of taking you whenever I wish. Why do you not ask me for the answers you so desperately seek? And it's a note from Theophany. I thought this was getting better. There were moments when I genuinely thought it was getting better. And then it didn't. And it got, in parts, worse. Listen, this book could have gone uphill. I didn't like the last two books, but there's always a chance that the next book could do better. And on the one hand, I will say that overall, this book is not good, but the only good parts are in this piece. So I broke this down into 3 parts as I do with the Fourth Wing series, and this is the only good part. So I have more nice-ish things to say here than I ever will in any other book in this series and any other part in any of the books. So you're welcome. Obviously, this series is not to my taste, and by that I mean I think that the context of the series, the inner workings, the world building is so bad, and now this book in particular, ONYX Storm, is trying to fix that, and it failed to do that. The part that we're about to get into is all the lead up to the fixing, and then it didn't get fixed. Part 3 is really just gonna be like me screaming, why? Because this could have been to my taste, and then it just ended up not being to my taste. Speaking of taste, today's sponsor is Factor, who has been delivering delicious, ready-to-eat meals to my doorstep, and is the only reason I've been eating, because Carlos has literally been gone for months. Much like the characters in this book can't make a plan to literally save their lives, I can't make a meal plan ever. But I don't have to, because Factor comes to rescue the day, or as Violet would say, for the win. Factor's easy, delicious, ready-to-eat meals have eliminated the hassle of cooking and prep work and grocery shopping and cleanup. I hate all those things. Just heat and eat. I'm a huge fan of corkscrew pasta, also known as cavatappi, and their cavatappi and meatballs is like my new favorite thing. But I'm trying to try new things, so they sent me new pork dishes and chicken dishes, and I have really been enjoying them. My favorite is still the mushroom marsala. I could eat that every single day and never get sick of it. I obviously work from home. I drink Factor juices at lunchtime. I eat Factor for dinner, which their meals are perfect for right before or after a workout. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef crafted, dietitian approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And you can choose from a weekly menu of 35 options, including popular ones like Protein Plus, Vegan and Veggie, Keto. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the vegan and veggie option. And you can discover more than 60 add-ons every week. Breakfast, lunch, snacks, beverages to help you feel good and stay fueled all day long. So what are you waiting for? Get something perfect delivered to your doorstep, not by Dragon. It'll come in a box. Have Factor fill your fridge. Head to factor75.com or use the link down below and use the code 50RWR to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor order. So that's code 50RWR at factor75.com. And thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring today's video and also for making it so that I actually have something to eat for dinner. All right, let's get back into ONYX Storm Part 2. We are in Chapter 20. We left off on Chapter 19. We're going from Chapter 20 up to Chapter 41. We're doing another 33% of the book. This one is longer than the last 2 books, much to my chagrin. Okay, so where we last left off was in Chapter 19. Theophany knew that they were going to that one town that had somehow desiccated stone and was also a town that was, built to withstand dragons and yet went up in flames in literal seconds. I'm never not going to be mad about that. So then we get into Chapter 20. They have returned back to the War College. Violet says that she spends a few days reading every single book on Devarelli that Jacinia can find to prepare for her briefing on her progress with the Scenarium, which is like the council that's in charge now. Again, I don't know how some of these people are allowed to still be in charge, considering, know everything awful that they've done. The revolution themselves, who knows about this and who was like taking a stand against them, was like, guess we'll just be under their control still. I don't get it. It like briefly mentions Jack, but he doesn't come on page in this chunk of the book. He's like completely missing for this 33% of the book that we're going to talk about, except for like brief mentions like this one where it talks about how it mentions in passing that she goes to talk to him. We don't see this conversation. He's all too happy to tell me about a sim, which is like one of the stages of Venin, a sim progression, how channeling from the earth happens as easily as breathing beyond the wards, but he won't give up the name of his sage or give me anything other than trivial information about them. And he's sure as Malik not going to tell me how Theophany knew we'd go for the citrine or what answers I'm searching for. She's also going through her dad's manuscript for the third time and scour the research that Behemoth requires. I don't know for sure, you can tell me, but wouldn't Behemoth kind of be an anachronism? I don't know, you tell me. And she thinks about how the fact that her dad was researching feather tales, and we've talked about since like book 1 how these bad people are really interested in her dad's research on feather tales. Again, why the dragons don't see this as a red flag is beyond me. And she's talking about how when Varish last mentioned last year that he thought the research dealt with feather tales, I never imagined it would lead in this direction. By the way, Sawyer is still dealing with a new transitional period in his life where he is finding a prosthetic leg that works for him after how the last book ended. We talked a little bit about this in part 1. He has rejoined classes, but he is not back on the flight field yet. And he does not come back on the flight field, as far as I know, in all of this 33%. We are going, for the next 33%, going to completely change where we have been. This is very different than, honestly, the rest of the series. Riddick, who is supposed to be like the comedic relief, the funny guy, who I just do not think is funny at all, reveals that he has been, they say that he's honing his signet, but again, I think what we're leading towards is that Violet has a secondary signet, which is amplification, because he is learning that he can freeze water inside of fruit. And I think what's happening is just like by virtue of being around Violet, everybody else's signets are getting stronger. That's what I assume at this point of my reading experience. So she goes and talks to like the council, the scenarium, whatever it's called, and Violet's there and Riddick's there. The Duchess, who's on the council, is like, there are extra people in this room. Again, I don't know why they let this council be in charge after how poorly this has all ended up with like hiding the existence of the venin, whatever. Violet's like, well, these people are here at my request. And Halden, the prince, who is Violet's ex, is like, I'll allow it. They want Violet to search Orisha, or at least they want Orisha to be searched. And Violet's like, no, because that's Xaden's territory. And Colonel Markham, who's one of the baddies, says, searching Orisha is the first logical course of action, considering it's the only area we have no information on. She says, as far as I'm concerned, you have the credibility of a drunkard and the integrity of a rat. You dare complain about missing 6 years of information on Orisha when you've hidden centuries of our continent's history from public knowledge. Again, that's a fact, and also him still being in charge doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You guys had a whole revolution based on these people who were in charge making those exact decisions, and then you came back and just left them in charge still.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
I don't understand. And Markham, of course, takes this really well. You cannot speak to a superior officer, let alone the commander of a quadrant, with such disrespect. In case you missed it, when I cross the parapet, I am not in your chain of command. And Colonel Atos is like, but you're in my chain of command, and I speak with the authority of Melgren. Another baddie. There's just like 4 bad men. The king, Markham, Melgren, Atos. And I speak with the authority of Taryn and Darna and the Imperium. Or did you forget that 2 dragons also lost their riders? Is she allowed to just say, I speak with the authority of the Empyrean? Aren't the other dragons going to be mad about that? Aren't the dragons that are bonded to these dudes going to be mad about that? Again, I don't understand how the Empyrean works. And Xaden, instead of bringing up how, hey, that doesn't make a lot of sense, says, if I wasn't in love with you already, I would be now. Oh, great. So Prince Halden is like, all right, Cadet Sorengale, who do you want on your mission to go to Devarelli with you, to talk to the Devarelli king? But just know that if you fail, we'll assign another commander, and refusing to continue will negate the terms of the Second Orisha Accord, which that accord is the one that gave Xaden back his title as Duke of Orisha. So Violet's like, all right, I want my boyfriend, my sister, my friend, and my other friend, also my other friend, Prince Halden, and his guard. And somebody named Captain Cordella, whose last name is Cordella? I don't even fucking remember. And she's like, also, I reserve the right to switch out people for my little mission, like who goes and who doesn't. I reserve the right to switch them out. Colonel Atos, I don't know, Dane's dad, Mr. Atos, Big Atos, is like, absolutely not. You'll take only commissioned officers, no flyers, and you don't get to take your boyfriend. Out of the question. Which this literally doesn't make any sense. Like, these people are super incompetent. So she has to explain like basic strategy to these people who have been at war for a really long. It's like they want to fail. Mira, her sister, is the only rider capable of creating her own wards. Cadet Atos is the only rider I trust who speaks fluent Crovelish, which is the second most common language used in Devarelli. Riddick is dedicated to my personal safety, and even if Xaden weren't the deadliest rider in the whole of our forces, his dragon and my dragon cannot be separated, and there's no telling how long we'll be forced to travel. I'm tired of arguing this point. I am also tired of arguing this point.
That seems like a pretty crucial conjunction.
Because it doesn't make sense that he doesn't already know this stuff. Like, it's just setting this up so that he looks bad by arguing it, and then she has to deliver this logical information. He's in charge. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that he's arguing this. Like, it's just an easy way to make Atos look bad and make Violet look smart. Like, it's easy, but it's not logical. It doesn't make sense that this guy doesn't already know this stuff. He's in charge. He's been in charge in the military for a long time. He should understand these basic concepts of going on a mission and needing certain people to do certain things. This is dumb. He's a professor at this war college. He is my... Colonel Atos is saying that Xaden can't go because he's a professor. Again, like, Taryn and Sigale can't be separated. Him being a professor, which happened like fucking 40 pages ago, is moot. And like, this guy should know that, but he's just set up to be stupid so that Violet can be set up to be smart. So then the Duchess is like, I might be persuaded to agree to his absence if he considers my daughter's proposal. And Prince Halden is like, okay, you just don't trust Xaden and you want to see your bloodline not only in your territory, but also in Tyrrendor, which is Xaden's territory. So Violet gets her way, of course, because it's the only logical thing, and everybody else was just set up to look stupid and mean for what reason, who knows. So then we see Mira and Drake, one of the Griffin flyers, and Mira meet each other. And I think Drake has been mentioned before because remember, the Griffin Riders and the Dragon Riders used to fight against each other. So like some of them are notorious to each other. And so one of these is like the notorious Drake Dragon Rider or Griffin Flyer, Jesus. And then Mira knows of Drake. They finally meet. They don't like each other. Mira knees him in the dick. I assume they're going to kiss later at this point. Violet is so happy. We could be only days away from having everything we need. And Darna's family, a cure for Xaden, whatever it is my father wants me to retrieve from the merchant in Devarelli. Things are looking up.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
So then they leave. And once we get away from the War College and the politics of Basgiath and the entire country of Navarre, the series is better. When we're not doing what the series is actually about. Now, some of this I still don't fully understand, but I think that might be a me problem and not the book problem because I just don't really feel like I understand the Venin, but I also do feel like that is a series problem because the Venin were not really fleshed out in a way that made sense. I think that we were like flying by the seat of our pants and then we just sort of like landed where we are. The point is they push themselves to fly. This entire aforementioned group pushes them for 24 hours because she doesn't want Xaden to be on unwarded ground because he's a Venin now. So she's worried about him, slowly slipping away before she can find him a cure. Halden and his guard have to be carried in a basket by the Griffins, which is like an objectively hilarious idea of this prince like dangling in a little basket, in a little baskety basket. He's like Toto in The Wizard of Oz. He's just being carried around in a little basket. They pass an area that says the hatching grounds of the Blues used to be near here before the Great War. I'm a little confused about dragon lore still. Who's shocked? Not me. I am confused because it doesn't seem like it says the hatching ground of the Blues. Does that mean the blue dragons always have blue dragons? And if so, like, is it uncommon to mate outside of your particular strain of dragon? So like Sigale is blue, but Tarn, her mate, is a black dragon. So is it just like the female dragons, like the female dragons lay blue eggs, or is it not normal for a blue dragon to mate with a black dragon? I'm a little confused about all this. But, you know, per the course for this fucking series. And Darna is still a teenager dragon, so she is like really snappy with Taryn the whole time, and it's supposed to be funny, and I just don't find it funny. They end up going to the territory of Vic Counterus, who they are now allied with. And by the time that they get there, I will say that what we are doing, at least, like I noticed it more in this 33% than I noticed it in the beginning of the book, but we are like actively talking about how much of a toll all of this takes on Violet's body way more now. Which I think that like part of the issue that people who, and not everybody, I understand that everybody's experience with EDS is different, but when the first book first came out, a lot of the reviews from people with EDS were explaining how they felt like this wasn't super reflective of EDS in a way that made sense just because of the toll that stuff like this would take on Violet's body. I think that we made like an active attempt to rectify that here, and it shows. So like by the time she gets to Viscount Tecarus's territory, exhaustion, dehydration, and heat are never a winning combination for my body, so she's not doing well. And this will come up a few more times in this 33% in particular. They go and talk to Viscount Tecarus. They explain that they have the artifact that they went to go get from that one city that is supposed to be like something that they give to the Devarelli king in order for him to be interested in talking to him. I don't know, it's like overly complicated for no reason. So she's exhausted. Xaden picks her up, and she thinks to herself, it feels so right to be in his arms. And he says out loud, because it is. I didn't say that out loud, she said. Then you must have thought it down the bod because I wasn't pushing into your intentions. Pushing into your intention. I don't feel like an intention. Like I think we're misunderstanding. Like Xaden's secondary signet is doing a lot of work that I feel like the word intention reading does not fully cover, but okay. The point is, we're starting to show more and more that Xaden and Violet, like I think Violet is an amplifier and she's amplifying his power of being able to read her mind or something. So she's like, your signet is growing then, but it's not just his, because again, like Riddick was talking about how he can freeze stuff more and more. And I think we've seen, at least in the last book, that her friend Rhiannon's power is also amplified around Violet. So Tecarus shows up at the room that Violet and Xaden are sharing, and he's like, you cannot deliver the Prince of Navarre to the Devarelli king in a basket. That's like super embarrassing. He's not going to be granted an audience if he is seen as the item that's being delivered. So he's like, I'll take the prince. I'll go on my fastest ships. It'll take me 2 days. We'll go and I'll prepare the Devarelli king for the appearance of dragons. And Halden is going to bring the artifact that was requested in order for them to even get an audience with the Devarelli king in the first place. And this frees up Violet and Xaden to go to Devarelli and look for the merchant that her dad requested she go and find. Tecarus warns them, I may collect rarities, but King Courtland absconds with them. Do not wander off from each other. Do not advertise what a rare jewel you are, and at all costs, do not make a deal that you cannot keep. Start flying to the islands that are off of the map, right? We're going beyond. And they fly to Devarelli, and there is no magic in Devarelli, meaning everybody else can't communicate with their dragons. Dragons can't communicate with each other, but guess who can still communicate with her dragons? The special Violet Sorengale. Why? We don't know. They get to Devarelli, and Devarelli has a bunch of like loaded weapons with like crossbolts, you know, the same things that took out Daenerys Targaryen's dragons. They have like those shit. Dragon killers, they're called. And this island is beautiful. There's dolphins. So basically they're in, you know, Florida. She figures out that she's the only person who can speak to her dragon still. The rest of the dragons are really upset about this. Do you think it's because you're bonded to two, or is it in Darna? They don't know. They don't know anything. So they start heading into, you know, the island. They land on the beach. They head into the island. They can't go speak to the king, whose name is King Courtland, because he will only speak to aristocracy, which is, you know, Tecarus and Prince Halden. So they have time to go find the merchant. In chapter 23, it says that she's staring at Xaden, who's wearing a short-sleeved uniform top like the rest of us, bearing those gorgeously toned arms. I do not need to know. I do not care. Strangely, Xaden is in a great mood.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
I can admit, I'm a little confuddled. Stop. Xaden Ryerson is a lot of things, but happy isn't usually one of them. Yeah, bitch, there's no magic here, so he doesn't feel like shit. He can't channel, he can't do venom shit, so he feels better. Because he feels human again. What's not clicking? You're supposed to be smart. And he's even being nice to Dane, who he's never nice to. Did you two ride horses a lot when you were younger? My jaw drops and my head whips in his direction. Like, they get, like, shocked at the idea of this man being nice to Dane and asking him a mundane question. Mundane. Ha ha. So they go to the gold and spice market, walk around a bit, end up finding the bookstore. Oh, wait, before I get there, cute little thing I highlighted here. If all of this hadn't happened, would we still be us? Or is the miracle of our relationship the result of a precise combination of tragedies that broke us both so completely that when we collided, we became something entirely new? Ugh. You're not a miracle. Your relationship is so stupid and boring. He wears black and has muscles and is broody, and you're book smart and have a braid. Like, come on. You guys aren't even cool. You're not a miracle. You're just horny. Anyways, they find a dealer of rare books thanks to, Dane being able to speak Crovelish. Dane turns to Violet and is like, why is Xaden being so nice to me? Did you give him something? Anyways, they go to the rare bookstore. She starts asking around at the bookstore, and the bookstore people immediately are like suspicious of her for specifically asking for a woman named Narell. And so then they get attacked. They end up like incapacitating the people who attack them. They realize that the people at the bookstore are protecting something, and it turns out that it's an old woman, and this old woman is Narell. You must be Asher Sorengale's daughter, here to collect the books he wrote for you. Chapter 24 starts with unsent correspondence from General Lilith Sorengale, who was Violet's mom. She won't understand why you've kept her in the dark. You left too soon, left too many of your plans unfinished. Now we can only hope the bond between our daughters is strong enough to endure the paths they've chosen. They'll need each other to survive. So, of course, Narell, this old woman who Asher Sorengale left this information with for Violet to go find, one of the first things she says is, the continent does have some fine-looking men. A quarter of Xaden's mouth quirks up, and I can't help but silently agree with her. Can't you help it? I feel like you could if you tried harder. This is a 93-year-old woman, and she's like, but what is it you Amiralis say? I have not yet met Malik. He's your god of death, is he not? And I'm like, isn't he like the only god of death that exists in this world? What you call gods, we call science. What you call fate, we call coincidence. She knows that Violet and Xaden are together and said, I heard you saying you'd kill my grandson if he took another step towards your beloved young man. How illogically, toxically romantic of you. And I'm like, so this woman is just here to be the old lady who says how cute Violet and Xaden are and give her some books? Great. But she thinks that Xaden is Dane because Violet's dad told her that he assumed that Dane and Violet would end up together. He described you almost perfectly, Dane Atos. And Violet's like, oh, fucking kill me now. And I'm like, oh, couldn't come soon enough, could it? And Xaden immediately gets mad. All traces of his former niceness now gone. Everyone assumes she'll wind up with you, but it's my last name she ends up wearing on her flight jacket in formation. We don't have last names on our flight jackets, and yet you get the fucking point. This is so dumb. So then the old lady Narell is like, oh, Fen Ryerson's son. Wow, Xaden's so notorious. This is just such it's just dumb. So she says that Asher Sorengale, the, dad of Violet, she says about him, your father risked all your lives to hide away his life's work with the sole purpose that you find it, Violet. He left the last bit with me almost 4 years ago with explicit instructions that you only be given it if you had attained the intelligence and understanding you would need to comprehend it. He told me to bring you the rarest item I possess, says Violet, and he meant my mind. Wow, it's a rarity?
That varies, ma.
Your mind? Violet, that's the rarest thing you possess? Wow, slim pickings, I guess. So she has to answer 3 simple questions, and then she can have the books. What's the title of your dad's manuscript, which is Subjugated, the Second Uprising of the Courtland People? In chapter 14, your father alludes to the Courtland Uprising falling apart because of Devarelli, but does not go into specifics. So tell me, what's your hypothesis? And Violet says, I think they promised dragons and they could not deliver. I think the Devarelli brokered a deal with Krovla and an unnamed isle that the isle would provide the army and Krovla would provide the dragons. When they were unable to do so, the deal fell apart. The Midnight Massacre happened, and Krovla remained a part of Paromial, which is where the Griffin Riders come from. They were dealing in dragons. And it says, one does not just ... deal in dragons. Wow, thanks Boromir, so glad you could join us. Let alone take babies to isles that don't have magic, not when you risk the wrath of the Empyrean. Here's my thing. This is all to go find the rainbow dragons. Yeah? So my question is, wouldn't the Empyrean want to go talk to the rainbow dragons? Who's the Empyrean again? Who does that constitute exactly? And why didn't they have a gathering to decide who they would send with the humans to go talk to the rainbow dragons? Empyrean is just once again a thing that only exists for Violet to throw around. I don't fucking know. I don't understand any of this. Violet tells Dane, wait until you realize that your dad knows my dad's book has something to do with Feathertails, which means dad knew to stop trusting your dad at some point. And then the third question is, what made you leave the prince, Halden? What made you stop, being with him? Which I don't know why this old woman cares, but okay. Violet's like, he didn't love me the way I deserve to be loved. And Narell's like, give her the books. This is so stupid. Narell turns to Mira, Violet's sister, and is like, your mother was raising you. I wonder what legacy you've inherited, since Violet's inherited, Asher's book smartness. So she receives 6 tomes written by her father. All of them are passcode locked. At the end of this chapter, her and Xaden are just like making out. Who cares? Chapter 25. The most useless word in the language of aristocracy has always been and forever will be love. Marriage is a necessary evil to secure the line, nothing more. Save your love for your children. And that was a letter from Xaden's father, Fen Ryerson. Chapter 25. They're making out. Xaden says, there's no magic here. I can you as many times as we want, as many times as you can take, and I can't lose control. Because remember, that was a point of contention in the beginning of this book where he's like, what if I channel during Schmex? And my question was, so you have to keep your hands off of her, but you don't, do you or do you not channel through your eggplant, through your hot dog? Does the hot dog channel or not? I'm just asking basic questions here. She's like, I don't want you to do something that you don't feel comfortable doing. He takes the hand and wraps it around the length of his hard chicken. Does that feel like I'm not comfortable? I swear we already did this, but as we know, I did an entire video talking about how the repetition in this book is a problem, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I get to do my favorite thing in the world, which happens to be f***ing you. And then we get into the Schmeck scene, which is, as I've already done in this video, I've already explained that the Schmeck scenes are the same thing over and over and over. We use the exact same language. We go through the exact same sequence of events every single time. Talks about his talented fingers, and then when he, gets in there, it says things like the pressure, the stretch, and then he always says like weird possessive stuff that is like super not cute. I'm never giving you up. You know that, right? You had your chance to run. You should have run, Vi. Is this a dark romance? Is this haunting Adeline? He punctuates each claim with a harder, deeper thrust. And of course, as per usual, they break a piece of furniture. Wood snaps a second before gravity shifts. They destroyed a whole table. Next thrust hits such a sweet spot that I can taste it. So they don't even stop on account of the table. He says, you have to let go for me, love. It's like the same exact scene every single time. I don't even feel the need to like go into it further than that. It's the same scene I've read for you throughout this book and 2 other books. What else is new? Nothing, not here. So all of their pals are at their bedroom door afterwards. And of course, Riddick is like, you two totally broke the table, didn't you? Like the word totally is actually used. That's not me being hyperbolic. Like that armoire no one was supposed to notice getting hauled out of her room during first year. I mean, the armoire is like the least of the problems. You guys were creating entire fires because of lightning. Like the armoire is the least of, like you noticed the armoire getting hauled out, but you didn't notice the literal fucking fire? Like who had to clean up after that? Anyway, so they're told that King Courtland of Devarelli has decided to keep Halden, and Xaden's response is, too fucking bad for Halden. They're like, Xaden, you're the only other aristocrat that they're gonna let in, so we need you to go talk to King Courtland. So on their way, she asks Taryn, are you and Andarna in pain because you're cut off from magic? And he says, well, you live in pain, so I didn't feel the need to tell you every time I'm in pain. But Andarna shows no sign of trouble, but I'm inconvenienced, annoyed, and I'm cut off from Sigale and power and strength, and I don't like it. They go to King Courtland's court, and Violet is introduced by Xaden as his consort, and she says, what the actual fuck? Bitch, you need an excuse to be there. If he says you're his consort, that's an excuse for you to be there. What do you mean, what the, like, this is common sense, I fear. He can't just announce things like that without at least a discussion. I mean, he can if he's thinking on the fly. Consort, we aren't married, I've noticed, but girlfriend is missing that permanent tone. The designation just gets you an invitation into this place, plus gives you the protections and privileges of my title. I feel like if she thought for 2 seconds with that brain she supposedly possesses, that she could have figured that out for herself. I mean, I figured it out for myself, and I'm not that smart. But okay, Violet, sure thing. And then they're talking to each other, they're like, would you be interested in marriage? Like, can we do this a different time? Maybe? So then they meet the king, who is younger than Violet thought he would be by about 4 decades, with deep golden brown skin stretched over high cheekbones and a strong jaw, cunning brown eyes, and shoulder-length black hair. So Halden is there, Prince Halden, and Xaden's like, so what'd you do? I reestablished diplomatic connections between Devarelli and asked for their permission to use Tecarus's manor to launch a search mission with a riot of dragons in return for the artifact he requested. And when that was not enough, I offered something. And Courtland's like, it was not yours to give. And he stabs Halden in the hand. He offered a blade that actually belongs to Xaden. The blade of Arisha, appropriated for the royal vault by Reginald during the unification. Fascinating how he chose this particular gift, knowing it might provoke your emotion. So then this guy has 3 white panthers, pure white panthers, that he calls into the room and start like circling all of them. Their names are Shira, Sheena, and Shora. Xaden's like, all right, we want to reopen diplomatic channels and secure permission to use Viscount Tecarus's manor as a stopping point for a riot, which is a group of dragons. No more than 8 dragons and an equal number of griffins for the purposes of a search party, which would entail securing hunting rights of wild game for the dragons and the griffins, and a promise of safety for all parties. They want to search the island of Devarelli. And Courtland's like, I want to talk about something else. Who do you owe your loyalty? Xaden, your father was a rebel. Navarre or Tyrandor? And Xaden's like, Violet. My loyalty is to Violet first, above everything and everyone else, then Tyrandor, then Navarre in the moments it's worthy, especially when Violet is in its residence. So they ask him, hey, listen, King Courtland, are you aligned with the Venin? We've never involved ourselves with Venin. Not long after this, Courtland takes a lid off a plate, and on the plate is the head of a guard, Halden's guard, who flew with him in the basket to the Tecarus. So anyway, the point is that he's now serving the head of Halden's guard to a cat,
Irene.
One of the Sheena Shoras. And I just was like, my question is, was I supposed to care? You murdered my guard, Halden says slowly. Your thief was found in my treasury, Courtland says, with 6 stolen treasures on her person, and more she had yet to attain, written in your handwriting. They are items that belong to us, Halden says. Those items are mine, received as goods, bartered for services rendered over the last century. You took advantage of our desperation, Halden says. So like there was a trade disagreement between them, and Halden stupidly decided to go steal back the treasures. Ugh. Accepted priceless magical artifacts under unfair terms, and now you execute my personal guard when we seek to rectify your outright theft with a genuine agreement? Fuck you. And Xaden's like, Halden no longer speaks for us. Accept the deal with Tyrandor, and I'll assure you the only riots on your shore will have Arishan riders and their flyer counterparts. You don't have to deal with Navarre, you just have to deal with me and Tyrandor. Then Halden decides to say, you do not make deals with provinces, let alone the son of a traitor who blackmailed his way into a title. I am the only voice of our kingdom. And King Courtland's like, fuck you all. Viscount Tecarus can live, but kill the rest of them. So Xaden's pulling out swords, Violet's pulling out daggers. Xaden kindly, shockingly, gives the sword to Halden. So they get into a fight and Xaden channels, does venom shit. And I don't really understand this because there's no magic here, so I just don't really get it. Violet has Andarna come in and snatch up one of King Courtland's kitty cats.
Is that my voice? Is that my voice?
We can negotiate and I will give you the rarest treasure found anywhere on this world, and Shira will walk away in need of a good bath, or I can call our other dragons in here and they can have little panther snacks before we fly back to the continent. Your choice, but either way, you should know that dragons outlive their riders, so had you succeeded in killing us, all you would have done is really piss them off. And I'm like, so this man doesn't know that dragons outlive their riders? For real? He doesn't know that basic, like, he didn't think about the fact that if he killed all these people that the dragons would come kill him? He didn't think about that first? Okay, I guess, whatever. So then King Courtland accepts the citrine that they took from that one city in the first, the first video that we did. That's the last thing they did, was they got the citrine from this one city so that they could give it to Courtland. They give that citrine to King Courtland. He accepts it as payment for the alliance, but he does need to be compensated for the crimes that Halden did try to commit or didn't try to commit by, stealing. And so she gives him part of Andarna's shell with permission from Andarna for once Violet involves her dragons in the conversation. And also, Halden is never allowed to step foot on the island of Devarelli or his life is forfeit. 3 days later, they are back at Basgiath. They are in battle brief. They learned that not only are the Venin moving in Krovla again, but in the 8 days that they were gone, more flyer cadets arrived. She laments over the fact that even on an island without magic, Xaden was not safe. Also, the Venin somehow know that the Aretian wards are starting to fall and they're moving into position for the inevitability of them falling. And it just then says the next week passes in a blur. Okay, the Scenarium, which is the council, expects us to leave in a week for the next island because they're searching multiple islands for Andarna's kind. And she's worried about the circles of red in Xaden's eyes, like needing to fade. Like she's hoping that he'll, retreat and go back and not become further and further Venin like the Venin normally do. I feel like Xaden, other Venin seem to be like, I don't know how he makes this work in ways that like other Venin don't. Meanwhile, Andarna is going into exhaustive detail on why Taryn is the worst, period. It doesn't have a period, it writes out the word period. Worst period, mentor period, ever period. Meanwhile, Violet is reading her dad's books. They're still getting books sent to them from the Queen of Paromial, which is Queen Mariah. It says a volume Queen Mariah sent on venin and their medicinal uses. Venin are used medicinally? Given how difficult it was to get our hands on these books, it's wild to think that Garrick could probably walk straight from here to wherever her library is. And I'm like, yeah, that is weird. And then she's like, Garrick has a second signet. I wonder if also Bodhi does. Bodhi, what's your second signet? He's like, who said I have one? She talks to the other prince, which is Arik, who is Halden's younger brother. And he's like, how badly did the mission go? Halden was Halden, Violet says. He did Halden things and caused Halden-style ramifications, none of which are your fault. She realizes that they only have like a few months left before Xaden's gonna turn, before the Venin are attacking. It's also going to take them way longer than a few months to search every island for traces of the Irids, aka the Rainbow Dragons. Xaden shows back up and the whites of his eyes are clear, but something about the color of his eyes has fundamentally changed. He can still hear her even when she's not speaking directly to him through her mind channel, when she's only thinking to herself. And they decide, all right, we don't have time to keep going to an island, coming back and reporting, and then staying for a week and then going back again. We just don't have time. So Violet's like, okay, so we fuck the rules. And I'm like, okay, so if we were just gonna end up there, then why didn't we say fuck the rules in the first place? Again, what is keeping you here? You have dragons, you're bonded to them. I don't know why you still let these awful people be in charge. Just say fuck you and leave. What can they do?
This, to me, might be considered kind of a step backwards, wouldn't you say?
What can they reasonably do if you and all your friends say fuck off and you go? Tecarus isn't gonna align with the bad people of Navarre. He's gonna align with you. We don't fly back between isles. We don't report or return until we find her kind. And then they're like attacked by like Venin who are already inside the wall walls of Basgiath anyway, but I guess it was just like 1 or 2. She gets immediately executed. No questions, no chance to cure her, nothing is what Violet says. Then in chapter 29, it says, on the first Saturday of March, which I always forget that we do like actual real world months in this, Xaden and Halden get into a fight about Halden keeping mission essential information from those of us responsible for the fucking mission. Halden says, "Get out of my face. Must kill you that you can't make me," Xaden says. "Why don't you scurry to your little basket?" "Fuck off," Halden says. "I'm in your face," is all I can think. "I honestly don't care if you kill him," I say to Xaden down the bond, "but you will. Wasn't that your line when I nearly took Kat's head off in Arisha?" "He's gonna get you killed," Xaden says. "This isn't gonna work." And Taryn's like, "I told you Halden would be an issue." And then Arik shows up and is like, "I'm not gonna stand aside and watch while Halden gets you all killed. So why don't I just go in his place?" And Violet's like, "No, don't do it. And Dane, don't you let Arik come on this mission." And Dane's like, "How the fuck am I to blame for this? He's a first year and you're the wing leader, Dane." "Vi, I think he outranks me in this department." And I'm like, "Yeah, isn't that a fucking prince? Aren't you supposed to be smart?" Anyways, I don't mind Halden making your life miserable, but I do mind him condemning the continent to death by Darkwielder because he can't take a deep breath and count to 3 when he gets mad, says Arik. So Arik is gonna go in Halden's place. So Arik tells Halden this, and by the way, this is the first time that Arik is revealing, hey, by the way, I dipped from home and joined the dragon riding squadron. And Halden's like, "What the fuck? You've had us looking all over this goddamn kingdom, searching brothels and gaming houses for you, and you've been here? When our father hears about this," and Arik's like, "Fuck off and tell him, or don't, I don't care," across the parapet, because I was sick of sitting by knowing you and Dad weren't going to do shit about the Darkwielders, and I'm not going to sit by now and watch you run our only hope into the ground. I'll be going as the royal representative. Halden says, "Absolutely not, Cam." And then Violet, who just yelled at Dane about this very idea, says, "He goes by Arik, and he absolutely will." You just said he shouldn't. Okay, whatever. You're banned from Devarelli. You have the temper of a 2-year-old on a good day, Halden. Arik is a rider. He'll keep up with us in the air and on the ground, and having been in his squad for the last 8 months. And Halden's like, you breached the vault. And I'm like, you didn't think about this sooner? Like, somebody had to have breached the vault. You have a missing brother. Put 2 and 2 together. But I guess Halden can't do that, because then it would look like somebody else in this book has brain cells other than Violet. Did you stay behind in Basgiath, or did you fly with the rebels when they dipped and decided to go be a revolution? And Arik's like, you already know the answer. So then they head off to another island, the island of Dune, who is the war goddess, I believe. Violet and her sister at the island are talking to each other, and Mira is rotating a bracelet of black tourmaline. Something about the knotwork holding the metallic beads tickles the back of my brain. Mira says, "I went to go see grandmother." And Violet has never really interacted with her grandma because her parents ended communication with her grandma Niara. Mom and Dad almost never spoke of their dad's family. Is that where the bracelet came from? And Mira won't tell Violet anything really about her grandma. She's like, you should go talk to her sometime. But this doesn't come up in the rest of the 33% of this book, so just kind of felt like thrown in here. I had to take a break and eat lunch. I feel like I've been filming this forever. I feel like I've been talking about this series forever. Okay, so the grandma is where the bracelet came from. Now Violet's like, oh, Mira isn't talking about stuff with me, and I can't believe that we have family that doesn't talk to me. And I'm like, up to this point, I didn't even clock that you had family, because all you ever talk about is Xaden and his muscly muscles and his chicken. We've done the same sex scenes 3 times throughout 3 different books, and yet this is the first time I'm ever even considering that Violet has a grandma. Fine, Mira. If the last year has taught me anything, it's that we're all entitled to our secrets, but it's my family too. All right, so on the island of Dune, they are come upon by guards, and it says, a man says in the common language. Now, I don't love the idea of the common language being, Navarian. I understand Navarre is an empire, but they have not taken over these isles. So the fact that Navarre is the common language, despite not being the empire who did imperialism on these particular islands. So the default is Navarre. I just don't really understand. Anyway, chapter 30 starts with an excerpt from Major Rorley's Guide to Appeasing the Gods. It says, "It is unwise to favor one god above another, better to shun them all than show favoritism amongst a jealous, prodigious pantheon." Which is interesting because I feel like the gods have very little to do with this series up to this point. So these guards say, "Take your fire breathers, the dragons, and depart our isle. Every soldier in front of us, regardless of sex, stands roughly the same height, within a few inches of 6 feet tall, with the same muscular build and closely cropped hair." They're like, "Oh, you speak the common language," which, yep, we're just gonna move on from that point. And they ask to see the queen, and these guards say that their queen does not meet with those unworthy of her presence. And given how easy it was to walk up to your encampment, we don't think that you're worthy. But then these people see the dragons, become scared, or at least one of them does, and they realize, okay, if they're scared upon seeing dragons, then there are no dragons on this island, which means that Andarna's family is not here. They're on the wrong island. Yet again. Of course, it's the last island that they checked. So then here is the part where we finally are introduced to the concept that Violet's hair is like that for a reason that has nothing to do with her mom getting sick while pregnant with her. They go to the Temple of Dune on this island where the blue-robed attendants, who are the people who are part of the Temple of Dune, every single one of them has silver hair. Not gray, not white, silver. And as we know, Violet is called Silver One by her dragon. Now, I just think it's interesting. I just don't know how this is so unknown to anybody, including like the dragons. Like, really, Taryn doesn't know about these people with their silver hair? Anyway, okay. They all have different heights, shapes, genders, and skin tones, but their hair color is all the same. It's silver. And there is a brunette with a silver-tipped braid that swings against her back as she scoops up a younger child. "Never in my 21 years have I seen anyone with hair like mine. Does hers always end in silver, no matter how short she cuts it? Do her joints fail her? Do her bones break? I need to know." So Dane is translating because they're not all speaking the common language. And he says, "I think that they said that we need to provide our strongest warriors and they'll test our worthiness to speak with their queen." Arik says, "They're asking if Xaden is our champion, actually." And they're like, "Why didn't you tell us that you're fluent in Krovish?" And Arik is like, "Oh, you never asked." That would have been helpful to know, and I don't know why they didn't assume that. Anyway, didn't she know Arik before all this? Whatever. So there's a priestess who has like Dune's emblem inked into her forehead. She says, "The goddess of war demands her payment before you may prove your worth." So like Arik is like, "I'll fight." Dane is getting picked to fight. Xaden's getting picked to fight. Taryn says, "This just got interesting." And Violet says, "This is not interesting. This is terrifying." And my note just says, "Actually, it's neither. We both know nobody's gonna die," because that's how this series has been going. I don't even remember writing that. That's kind of funny. So then the priestess says, "Tell me, did you choose this path yourself?" regarding Violet's hair. Because remember, her hair is silver tipped. So Violet's thinking she must mean like choose the path of being a dragon rider. "I chose my life," Violet says. "Ah, then it is good we did not complete your dedication," the priestess says. "My what? But do you not yearn for our temple? Usually the touch creates such longing that you can't help but return. Or perhaps now you favor another god." So at this point, I have gathered enough context clues to know what's going on here. "We did not complete your dedication." What do you mean, my what? Your dedication. Like, I have enough to know that you get dedicated to the temple, your hair turns silver, or you start like favoring another god. Like, we have enough to go on, Violet. You're supposed to be smart. It just feels lazy to write it like this. "I still see us amongst your potential paths should you choose to take it. Dune will accept you. It is not too late to choose her, capital H." And then the priestess takes Violet's arm, slices it with her dagger, and now Violet must too fight. Also, in the next chapter, it starts with an excerpt that mentions that the color, even in the vegetation on this island, is waning. "She faces Marlise," the priestess says. So Violet has to fight someone named Marlise, who has at least 10 inches and a good 50 pounds of muscle on me. So they get into a fight. Atos is also fighting his chosen counterpart. Xaden's also fighting somebody. And Darna yells out to Violet, "Hey, Atos is already unconscious." Xaden is fighting some guy named Costa, and Costa has Xaden pinned to Xaden's back. And Marlies, who Violet is fighting, is like, all right, you have two choices. You keep me pinned, because she has Marlies pinned, or you help your boyfriend. Violet throws the knife at Costa, thus helping Xaden, but then she still takes down Marlies. And then lightning starts striking, but that has to be a coincidence because there's no magic on this island. Maybe it's coincidence, or maybe it's Dune. So it turns out that Marlies, who Violet was fighting, is actually the Queen of Umbriel, the island that they're on. Tell me I did not just hold a blade to the Queen of Umbriel's throat! Xaden and Violet won, of course, and Dane lost, of course, but 2 out of 3 victories means that they've earned their audience with the Queen of Umbriel. We've come for 2 reasons. First, we're seeking the 7th breed of dragon. Queen Mariss says, if there were such a thing, this island hasn't seen fire breathers in centuries. I'm afraid you've come looking in vain. So what's your second purpose? They say, allies. We're in a war that might claim every life on the continent, and we need allies. And Queen Mariss says, you can't afford our services. Try me. Marlies is like, hey, how'd you do it? The lightning. I didn't. You have no magic here for me to wield. And yet you've destroyed something that stood for 700 years before your arrival, which was like the throne, I think, which was in the middle of the room. That's what got hit by lightning. Perhaps it is Xenal, the god of luck, who blesses you. Good luck when you search that particular isle. They have a mean streak. So the price that they would have to pay in order for the island of Umbriel to fight with them is dragons. Not fully grown, your kind has let them become too headstrong, too arrogant. If you give us 12 eggs, 2 of each breed, I will bring my army to the continent to help fight the venom. And so Violet realizes that during the Second Courtland uprising, the reason that they were looking for feather tails was not because of the gifts of feather tails, because baby dragons get a gift while they're still a baby. It's because they thought that they were more malleable, which I feel like that was obvious, but okay. Violet's like, if you want to be a rider, the quadrant accepts those who cross the parapet on July 15th, which is right before my birthday. I'm the 17th. Oh my god. And the dragons choose their riders, not the other way around. And the queen's like, well, surely I'm worthy because I'm a queen. Well, we don't trade in dragons. And Marlies is like, all right, well, hold on to your indignation for now, but do visit us again when you feel more desperate. From what I know of them, they're rather dedicated to protecting their own, so perhaps a dozen eggs isn't a bad price for saving the rest of them from the venom. So then Mira, her sister, afterwards is like, did you wield? How'd that lightning happen? Violet says, I didn't wield. You can't wield. There's no magic here. And Mira's like, yeah, but you can still talk to your dragons. And it's like, again, self-explanatory. Clearly there is some magic still afoot. So then she asked Mira, hey, when did my hair turn silver at the ends? And Mira said it never turned silver, it grew in that way. She's like, of course my parents didn't dedicate me. And I'm like, okay, then what was that lady talking about? Like, that's the next logical question to ask, is that lady said we didn't finish your dedication. So clearly something is amiss here. So then they go to the Isle of Hedotus, which is the island based off of the god of knowledge. This is the isle I'm most excited to explore, a whole community built on knowledge and peace. They notice that the vegetation is even paler there, and they also notice that this is a coastal city. The capital of this island is a coastal city that has no port. Small boats line the beachfront, pulled up onto the sand as if marooned here. Being the Isle of Wisdom, it's a far from logical approach. This island is run by a triumvirate. How do you say that word? As soon as they get to the island, they are come upon by a group dressed in tunics and gowns of various pastel colors in like a one-shoulder fashion. I'm Ferris, the second of the triumvirate. Ferris turns and says to his wife, darling, won't you come say hello? I apologize for my wife. Talia seems to be overcome by your magnificent dragons. And Violet locks eyes with this woman, Talia, long black hair, whose dark eyes settle on Xaden, and Talia says, Xaden, is it really you? And that's his mother! Oh, a family reunion, fun! Chapter 34 starts with an excerpt from Violet's dad's letter when he was on this island, the island of Hedion, which is called Hedotus. It has been the experience of my lifetime to spend these months with others who value knowledge just as reverently as I do, but though their intelligence and their wisdom inspire me, their artifice terrifies me. So they go to these people's house, and we start this chapter where they're at the house, and Xaden is already hiding in a bedroom from his mom, essentially. And his mom is like really trying to talk to him, and Violet's like, oh, we'll talk to you in a bit. She's trying to bring snacks. She's like, okay, well, if you won't eat snacks, then like, what about dinner?
It's dinner time!
He should meet the rest of the family. I was so young when he was born. I was still young when the contract was expired. I never thought I'd get to see him again. And Taryn is talking to Violet and is like, you should tell her the truth. You should tell her that her son hates her. And so does Sigale. The life giver is lucky she wasn't scorched this morning, though I do believe Sigale is still contemplating her options. The life giver, stop. This is so dumb. So Talia is trying to barter with Violet to get to talk to Xaden. And she's like, I understand wanting to talk to Xaden. He's great. And Talia's like, yes, what if I can promise you that you'll get a meeting with the full triumvirate? That's what you need, right? And Violet's like, what I need is for Xaden to be all right. If that means setting this house on fire and leaving without accomplishing anything else on this island, then I'll hand him a torch. Wow, you're really bad at this job that the fucking government sent you on. So Violet goes and talks to Xaden, and he's like, I thought that she was living in Paromial this time. She never even told me she was from this island. Nobody told me. This island is really weird and has like a lot of its own, like, I don't know, very specific environmental stuff, which honestly, like, I mean weird in like a positive way. I would rather sit here on this island and learn about it than go back to fucking Navarre and deal with all of its bullshit, but which does, like, all of it doesn't make any fucking sense, but all right. So there's a mineral called villadrite, and Violet says that her dad said that it was so prevalent on the Isle that it's in everything they eat and drink, and it turns paler eye colors purple. So Xaden is sad because, you know, he's around his mom. He's like mad sad because he's around his mom, who essentially abandoned him because they did like a marriage contract, him and his mom and his dad, and she was like contracted to have a child for his dad, and then after a certain amount of time she was allowed to leave, and she left. So Xaden's like trying to like get Violet to do the nasty with him, and she's like, sex is not going to fix the real problem. He's like, you think I should talk to her? She's like, I'm not really sure that I'm the best person to give you advice on this, because she charmed you in the 3 minutes it took to push a tray of food through the door, because my mother just died. I'm sorry, Violet. You don't need to be. I'm just saying I'm not that person to ask if you should spend a night talking to yours, because I would give anything for 10 minutes with mine. Which is interesting because, like, I feel like Violet barely ever thinks about her mom, or her dad for that matter, or thinks about the fact that her brother faked his death. I mean, it's just like the amount of stuff that Violet thinks about that's like logical to spend brain power on versus the stuff that she, like, the amount of time she spends thinking about how hot Xaden is in comparison to other stuff is just bonkers. It's part of the issue with this series, in my opinion. How does she deserve my 10 minutes when she fed me chocolate cake on my 10th birthday and vanished later that night? I'm the fulfillment of a contract for her, nothing more. I don't give a shit how she looks at me or whatever bullshit she undoubtedly spewed at you. The only reason we're in her house is because she's married to one of the triumvirate, and I have no problem using that to get what we need. And she notices how easy it is for him to like get into his emotions and become Venom. And he's like, it's just, it's compelling because I want to not feel things. If I could choose to give over this portion of myself away, so help me Malik, I would. I get it now. It's not just the power that's addicting, it's the freedom to not feel this. Which is an interesting concept and would be interesting in a different book with not these people. Outside, one of the dragons roars or takes off or something. I think it's Sigale. And then some little kids say, Mama, you should have seen it roar. And they realize that the mama in question being spoken to is Xaden's mom, meaning Xaden has little siblings. The older is probably, what, 11? No wonder she never came back. She didn't just marry, she built a whole new family. And Violet's like, the pain, the mess, give it to me, I'll hold it. I know that sounds ludicrous, but I'll find a way. Ugh. I will hold everything you don't want to feel because I love every part of you. And this is so corny. It's like saccharine, sweet, disgusting. You already hold my soul and now you want my pain? Getting greedy, Violence. Blech. Violet's like, I have a plan. When those boys, Xaden's siblings, leave the house, and Darna, I want you to follow them because they did make dinner plans with his mom and they know that the kids are going to leave the house. Violet has dried Aran mint with her and she is making a plan to get what they need from the triumvirate. So the three people in question are Nairi, Roslyn, and Ferris, who's technically Xaden's stepdaddy. So they meet for dinner, and those three are wearing their sacred ceremonial robes. They thank Hedion for the meal using the common language. Now, clearly, Hedotus, this island, speaks one kind of language that is like part of like Hedian whatever, right? Okay, so my question is, if Xaden's mother is from Hedotus, then she never spoke to him in anything outside of the common tongue. I find that kind of odd. Like, I don't know why she wouldn't. And this doesn't come up, so okay. So Violet gives them Airmint tea.
Drink. Right.
And they don't know. And this is going to come up in a second. So Ferris, the stepdaddy in question, who's also on the Tri-Council, which is what I'm going to call it now because I don't know how to say the other word. Tell me something. When you die, do your dragons? Depends on the dragon, but usually no. Kat, who's there, remember Xaden's ex, Katarina? Kat. Griffins do. They bond for life. So they talk about how Xaden's title had been restored to Xaden, which is news that recently happened within the last few months or weeks, which means they have access to current information. They know about the rebellion. She knew, and she left him here. She didn't even go back, talking about Xaden's mother. Now they talk about the fact that it would have been a better alliance for Xaden to marry Kat. Like Ferris is like, that is the most logical thing to do. And Kat's like, well, I said yes, but he said no, and he met Violet, and now they're together, and they're two of the most powerful writers on the continent, so in that way, his alliance with her is perhaps wiser. The two of them could break and reshape the continent if they chose to. Huh. Then why are they still following this dumbass government of Navarre? But she also says, and besides, I'm with someone else now. For all of 2 seconds, Kat gets to be with somebody else. But the Tri-Council can't let this go, how unwise it is to break such an advantageous alliance. And I'm like, who fucking cares about, why do y'all care about this? They're not judging our intelligence, they're dissecting life choices. Yeah, that is weird and dumb. You're right, Violet. It would show great wisdom and dedication to their respective titles were they to contract marry for 3 or 4 years. A contract marriage would be most wise. We could have the legalities performed in the morning at temple and then hear what will no doubt be a plea for our assistance in the war in the afternoon. And Xaden's like, all right, drop the papers. And Ferris is like, great, for 3 or 4 years. And Xaden's like, anything less than lifetime is unacceptable. All of this is for naught though, because really they're just like arguing without arguing. I don't know. All of this is really dumb. Xaden's like, you can serve up riddles and fake scenarios and chess games for all I care, but if you think I'm gonna leave the only woman I've ever loved to contract marriage with a woman I don't even get along with, then the lack of wisdom is yours, not mine. And his mom is like, it's only for 3 years. They were talking about Kat and Xaden marrying, and then he was like, yeah, and by the way, Violet's name is spelled with 2 R's. Wow, that was a really stupid way to write that. Okay, anyway, so Talia, his mom, is like, it's only for a couple of years and then you'd be back together. Surely the potential of our alliance, of sharing our knowledge, would make that sacrifice worthwhile. Think of Tyrandor. And I'm like, why does this random Isle care if Kat and Xaden get married? Why is that the thing that their alliance hinges on? That has nothing to do with them.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
And again, Kat herself already pointed out that the advantageous pairing is Violet and Xaden being together because their dragons are bonded. Anyway, this is dumb. Ugh. Think of Tyrandor, Xaden's mom says. You cannot contemplate the things I have sacrificed for Tyrandor. This is so dumb. I lost my father, my freedom. Violet is the only choice I've made for myself. I won't sacrifice her for 3 years, not for a single day. You would know that if you hadn't abandoned me, if you knew me at all. I didn't want to leave you, Talia says. Your father wouldn't let me take you. Don't speak of my father. I'm the one who watched him die. Okay, but like that's pertinent information, is that he wouldn't let your mom take you with her. That was pertinent information. You don't just be like, yeah, well, I watched him die. Cool. I mean, not cool, but also like it does matter that your mom did in fact try not to abandon you. I couldn't take you. You're Tyrandor's heir. You could have stayed. You could have been my mother. They would have executed me right next to your father, or in secret, like it was done to Myri's husband. I did what I thought best for you. Well, you've done well for yourself. Who needs to be the Dowager Duchess of Tyrandor when you can be the wife of a member of the Tri-Council, mother of 2, live on a peaceful beach in a peaceful city on an isle that serves no greater good than its own? One of the Tri-Council, Nairi, is like, this heated show of emotion during an interview is unbecoming. So Mira, who, yeah, she's there, chimes in and is like, well, this interview ended before it began. You don't care that Violet is the smartest person in this room. Pfft, low bar. Or that Xaden tore apart Basgiath to save her. When did that happen? Tore apart Basgiath. You don't care that Arik, the prince, had to step into the light he hates so we'd have a royal representative, or that Garrick has stood by Xaden's side no matter the cost. We proved our lack of wisdom by coming here in the first place. You were never going to share your knowledge or ally with yourself with us. So first of all, if these people were actually wise, they would have asked about all of that and cared about it in the first place, not wanted Xaden and Kat to get married. What? And after Mira says all of this, Nairi says, true, we weren't going to share knowledge with you. Then they talk about the fact that they razed an existing city to build what stands now at the Isle of Hedotus. You destroyed the historical base of the city, homes your citizens had lived in for generations. Yes, it's beautiful and efficient, but it shows your intolerance for things that are not. I find it perplexing too that you don't have a port. It's unwise to venture over water when we know next to nothing about what lurks within its depths. And how are we supposed to take criticism from a group that doesn't even know the name of their own continent? So the continent was not always called the continent. The continent was named after Amari, the god, and they've already been told what the continent is named. It's Amaryllis. That's what both the other isles have called us. Of course, every other isle worships one member of the pantheon, and though we celebrate all, we hold one above all others, Amari. And then it spells it differently in like conversation, whereas like it's spelled with an I when Violet's thinking to herself, but then it says it's Amaryllis with a Y, according to ancient royal records, though I believe Paromish records called it Amalekis, which is another spelling. The only thing our kingdoms ever agreed on was calling the continent after the Great War. Rather arrogant of us to simply refer to it as the continent, as though there aren't others beyond the sea, but we've been torn apart by war for so long it's hard for anyone to think that we are one anything. So then they tell the Tri-Council that they find them lacking and they're not even sure they want them for allies because they don't have an army and they're stingy with the thing that should be free to everybody, which is knowledge. Well, we are not really here for your like army anyway. We're really here because we're dealing with the Dark Wielder spreading, and we also are trying to find the 7th breed of dragon. Every day we're gone could change the battle map in ways we can't begin to predict, and my kingdom is full of assholes who won't take refugees under king's orders, so tracking down the Irids is our best hope of not only adding to our numbers, but maybe figuring out how we beat the Venin 600 years ago. Again, I just feel like, wouldn't the dragons that are already on the continent have the same amount of information that the Irids have? And why can't we just ask the Empyrean? Anyway, you are truly bonded to a 7th breed? One of the Tri-Council asks Violet. If you truly seek knowledge, why do you not worship Hedion? Why do you not take residence here like others who seek wisdom instead of allyship? Our libraries are unparalleled. And Violet's like, I'm interested in information on the Venin. Ferris, the stepdad, says, what kind of information? Meanwhile, chocolate cake is being served. Happy birthday, and all your dreams come true.
It's your birthday!
And Talia, Xaden's mom, says, is it still your favorite, Xaden? I know your birthday isn't until the end of the month, but you're here now. And Ferris lets slip that she's been hoarding chocolate for weeks, leading Violet to realize, oh, Talia knew Xaden was coming. She knew we were coming. I prefer a Devarelli approach to an alliance. That's what Queen Mariss said. Courtland must have informed the other islands that we were coming. If you don't like chocolate cake anymore, that's all right, Talia says.
Dead before dessert.
Which is a real shame, because it's going to be delicious.
But I've been away from you longer than I was with you, and I know taste can change. You're an adult now after all, but just in case yours hasn't, we tried 4 recipes, and I think this one is the closest to what we had in Arisha. You used to sneak into the kitchens when the cooks were baking. And Xaden's like, yeah, I remember, it's still my favorite. And Violet's like, nah, we're being played. Talia knew Xaden was coming, which means Ferris knew, and he's smart, is he? And the 4 of them, Talia and the 3 of the Tri-Council members, don't have forks, meaning something is in the cake.
Poison. The poison for Cusco. The poison chosen specially to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
Xaden goes to eat it, and Violet's like, nah, don't eat that. But Garrick has already started eating the cake, and immediately Garrick is poisoned, and he's not breathing. Arik is like, he's fucking blue, and Xaden says, well aware, which is a change of pace, because normally when Xaden says he's well aware of something, it says hyphenated, well the fuck aware. So, you know, that's growth, which we love to see. But then Talia goes to eat some cake and Ferris is like, no, that's not for you. And Talia's like, what have you done? Did you poison my son? And Ferris is like, no, because your son was wise and didn't eat it. Violet's trying to figure out what the poison is. And she's smelling something that smells sickly sweet, like fruit that's been left in the sun too long. And Ferris is like, what are you going to do? Threaten to kill me? And Violet's like, well, I've already killed you unless you help out my friend, which all of this is very convenient. You're breathing now, but it's the vomiting until your bile turns to blood that will kill you. Should start in about 10 minutes. Don't worry, it only lasts about an hour. Kind of a miserable way to go, but I worked with what I had. Do you know why arrowroot is illegal to export? Why it's against the rules to take it outside of Orisha? And Ferris is like, oh, the tea. You put arrowroot in the tea. Violet's like, give me your antidote and I'll give you mine. You don't get to beat me, Ferris says. She turns to Dane and she's like, go get my dad's book on Hedotus, the island. Because remember, her dad gave her a bunch of books on all these islands. So then Violet goes into the kitchen, gets in a fight with the cook, says, what did you put in the cake? He says it was what I was instructed to. And she realizes that his hands are blue and he's been scrubbing the blue off his hands, which is weird because everything on this island, like most of it is like leached of color. And she's putting the pieces together. There's Eris birds on this island, the blue on the cook's nails, the scent of overripe fruit. But before she can reveal to us what the fuck is going on, she notices that the cook has stabbed Riddick in the side. Now, I want to remind you that Riddick has already almost died in this book. That's how we ended part 1, with Riddick almost dying, isn't it? Or was that part of a different book? No, that was part of a different book. That was part of the last book. So in every book, Riddick almost dies. So when are we going to get to the point where Riddick actually dies? Am I supposed to care by then? You've edged me this long. Kill somebody, Rebecca. Kill somebody. Kill somebody important. We're going to kill somebody in this part, and it's not going to be Riddick. I guess we're saving that or something. But don't worry, Riddick obviously isn't going to die right now. The blade caught the end of his flight jacket, and he really doesn't like that there's a hole in his flight jacket, so he starts punching the cook and saying, I punch, hate, punch, sewing, which is supposed to be funny. And Violet is like, oh my God, I thought you were gonna die, but you're fine, and I'm fine, and everything's fine, except Garrick. Yeah, Garrick's literally poison. Get it together, bitch. So she figures out, via her dad's books and all the context clues, that it's Zacchea berries, poisonous when allowed to ferment. Treat with fig or lime to the back of the throat within 1 hour. Thank you, Dad. So she gets a bunch of figs that Xaden's mom had dropped off to them earlier as a little treat. Is this island supposed to be like Greece? Is that what we're doing? Anyway, so they're getting the figs. They're gonna give them to Garrick, and that's going to be the antidote. Violet says to Ferris, logic and wisdom dictate that you assist us so that you don't become us, dealing with the venom. It is your war. It will be our war. You think they won't come here once they've drained every last ounce of magic from our home? We have no magic here, he says. Foolish man, they'll drain you, as in your life force. And I feel like, again, this is just set up to make everybody else look stupid and Violet be the smartest person. This is an island full of wise people, and yet they got bested by this dumb bitch. So then they make a fig slurry, give it to Garrick. He ends up being fine, of course. Xaden then descends to the dark place because, you know, somebody tried to hurt Violet via poison, and she's like, hey, pull your shit together, come back to me. I need you, not this, I need you. And so then Violet says, I'll give you the antidote. In a minute, my sister's going to bring one of your guards in. You're going to tell the guard to let us go. We have a newfound allyship rooted in bloodline. Guess someone's contract marriage worked out as intended because your wife's son is the Duke of Tyrrendor, Xaden. So you'll want to nurture that relationship, right? You would never be able to trust me. I'll turn on you the second you leave. You won't, says Violet. Your staff knows what happened here. You can keep them quiet, but you can't keep us quiet. Do you think your Isle would support your next bid for power if they knew you were outsmarted in your own home? And also, I'm going to fly out of here without you saying a single word because you love your sons. That's why you sent them out of the house tonight. Ask me why there's only 6 dragons outside. And he's like, no, that's impossible. Someone would have seen your dragon. Not when that dragon is an Irid. Because remember, rainbow dragons can go invisible. You wouldn't do that. They're children. Do you really want to take that risk, Violet says? Or do you want to drink the antidote and live? You didn't outsmart me, he says. None of this happened. She says, well, I didn't outsmart you alone because my father helped. I should have recognized your eyes. You're Asher Daxton's girl. So now they have an alliance-ish with with these terrible people of Hedotus, and they only have 2 major islands to search for the Irids. They head towards an island called Zahilna, which is the island that worships the god of luck, which is Xenal. And when they fly in, they realize that there's an arena that's full of thousands of people, and they realize that they're expected. So they go to this arena, and on this island, all the dragons can talk to each other. So yippee. Before they talk to these people, Xaden is like, Violet, you put yourself between me and Riddick back on the other island where my mom and stepdaddy are. And she's like, yeah, because I thought you were gonna hit him and you weren't yourself. And he's like, yeah, that's my point. There's no telling what I could have done to you. It's all I've been able to think about. And she's like, you won't hurt me. Even when you wanted to kill me last year, you never hurt me. Even when you lack your emotions, you're still you. And I'm like, yeah, but he won't be when he becomes a Venin, which you know you're supposed to be smart. You are a giant battle flag waving in the wind right now, Xaden, but you're my battle flag, and you do the same thing in my position. What? So a woman shows up and says in the common language, I'm Calixta, I'm mistress of today's festivities. Then she begins to speak in Zahilish. Any studying I did is completely useless. Nothing on the page could prepare me for hearing it spoken. I get this because when I hear Portuguese spoken, I'm at a loss and I want to slow the words down, but I can read it real well. Well, I can read about as much as a child can read, but I do that real well at like a 2nd grade level. So she's like, all right, I can speak your language if you need me to. You're here about securing an alliance. Word of your travels reached us weeks ago. We've been waiting for you. And they're like, listen, we're trying to find these other rainbow dragons. Can we talk to your queen? And Calixta's like, listen, our queen's happy to talk to you, but first you need to see what gifts Xenal has chosen for you. If you're willing to play and accept whatever gift the god of luck presents without complaint, then you will be able to go to our city where our queen awaits you. I don't even think they go and talk to the queen. I think they just deal with the gifts and then they dip. Let's find out. Basically, they're like, you have to take the gifts or we can't ally yourself with you. We do not accept those who do not adjust their sails in a storm. So then she reaches into a canvas bag, pulls out a stack of cards. Each card presents a gift. You'll pull the card that Xenal inspires you to choose and receive your gift. So Mira chooses a card, gets the gift of wine. Marin receives 2 orange tunics. Dane's card reveals a hand, and a woman walks up to him and slaps him across the face. And also, you can't complain about your gift. If you complain, that's an issue. Garrick is given a rusted steel bucket. Arik receives a fractured hand mirror that cuts his thumb. Xaden is given an empty glass box the size of his foot with pewter hinges and edges. Violet is given a compass on a dark chain. The needle on it doesn't move. Riddick draws a card with a pair of lips and a man comes up and smacks kisses on Riddick's cheeks. And then Drake, who Mira and him sort of kind of don't get along, but I assume they're gonna kiss eventually, draws a claw and is given a kitten. And then Traeger, who is Catriona's boyfriend, who's come up only to be told that him and Catriona are like, aw, how cute. He gets the arrow, which turns out to be a literal arrow to the chest, right in the heart. And so in the next chapter, Xaden is like, don't react. Drake is holding that cat, covering her mouth, keeping her from screaming, and Traeger's griffin, as a result of him dying, is dying. And Xaden's like, listen, Violet, this is your mission. You're in charge. I can't do this for you. They know that you're in command of this, so you need to say, you know, all right, cool, message received, gifts received, we're good now. Arik, I guess, went and saw the queen. Arik agreed to terms, which were oddly favorable to us. So this island is going to send an advance party within the next couple months, and the rest of their troops whenever we're ready to receive all 40,000 of them. We'll be able to man thousands of crossbolts, drive wyvern to the ground for awaiting infantry, increase patrols. And Kat's like, yeah, I get it. My boyfriend died so that everybody could be saved from the Venin with fucking 40,000 troops. That's just great. So they decide that they need to burn his body and his griffin's body, but they're gonna do it on an uninhabited minor island so that nobody digs up the griffin bones and like does anything weird with them. Because, you know, griffins aren't from here, so people might be interested in like griffin bones as a novelty or something. Violet's struggling because she has has, beyond fatigue. She's having a lot of aches in her joints. And then we get this moment where Taryn is like Violet's being told, you were selected by a general among dragons. You can choose to step into leadership or he can drag you. Either way, you're going to end up in front. I feel foolish for not having seen it before. Taryn will always lead and I will be his rider. What are you talking about? Taryn never leads. You always lead. The dragons never lead in general. It's always the humans and the dragons tailing along as if they can't literally eat all of you. Kodog speaks through Melgren, not the other way around. So Kodog was cool with Melgren and company being like, yeah, let's try to do stuff to baby dragons. Really? A dragon was cool with that? And the rest of the Imperium too? Okay. Violet and Xaden are talking and she's like, I'm gonna cure you. I'm researching Dark Wielders. I'm gonna cure you. And Xaden's like, there is no cure for me, Violet. You have to become better than me. There is only you. By the way, if you were wondering, the kitten that Drake got, he names it Broccoli. No one really wants broccoli, but it's good for you, so it seems fitting to me. Why not carrots? Mira says. She's orange. Just to frustrate you, Soren Gale. Oh my god, they're gonna be enemies to lovers, I guess. They're on a place with magic and no wards, and Xaden's like, at any moment I could just channel, be a bad guy. It's so tempting. I can feel the power beneath my feet. I could be at full strength if I but I won't. And Violet's like, I feel like I'm a trigger for you because if you get upset, you feel the need to protect me. You're not a trigger. You're the only thing I can't fathom losing. Wielding to protect you has always been an instinct, but now it's uncontrollable. That's a trigger. You just described something that triggers an uncontrollable reaction in you. Ta-da! Idiot. So they need to go search like some minor islands to try to find the one that has the rainbow dragons. They're on the final leg of this journey, yeah? And so are we. We're almost done, thank God. So Garrick and Xaden fuck off to go search stuff, and Garrick has serum that's supposed to help Xaden if he starts to be venom or something. And he's like, I mean it, Violet, when I say you own my soul, that's great. I don't care. You could die right now and I would be like, oh, what a relief. Violet, of course, is the one to find the rainbow dragons, except it's more like they find her. We didn't find the Irids, they found us. We did it. They're here. Chapter 41 starts with an excerpt from Field Guide to Dragonkind. What we know about Dragonkind is nothing compared to what we don't. You don't say. Wow, what a concept. Couldn't have told you that myself. I don't know anything about dragons, and everything I know doesn't make any sense. So the dragon is mind speaking to Violet, and it's like, why don't you answer me? There's like a bunch of rainbow/invisible dragons. Perhaps the human female lacks intelligence. And Andarna there is like, and Taryn is not. Andarna is. Taryn's not there yet. She's just surprised, and you're in her face. And all the dragons take a step back and they're like, what the fuck is that? They call Violet unintelligent repeatedly, which honestly I've never related to a character more than I do the rainbow dragons right now. Riddick is there with Violet, and he can also hear all the Irids. And he can also hear Andarna. And he's never heard another person's dragon before because that's not how that works. And the Irids make like this whistling sound that connects you to the other Irids, which is different than how all the other dragons work. So the rainbow dragons are a little bit different than all the other dragons. The rainbow dragons sort of shit on Andarna for having chosen black as her resting color. And they're like, oh, it's you. You're the Criterion. Taryn shows up and he's like, hey, that human there's, that one's mine. And Andarna's like, but she's also mine. And then the dragons are like, are humans rare now in Navarre? Is that why you guys are sharing? But we have no interest in the humans and no quarrel with either of you. We've only come to speak to the Irid. My name's Andarna. What have you done to your tail? One of them says. Nothing, it's fine, Andarna says. Tell us what they've done to you. Done to me? I chose my tail, as is my right upon transition from juvenile to adolescent. Tell us how you came to choose it, they said. Well, I blinked in and out of my consciousness in my shell years. And then she goes through her entire life. Like, it's told to us in passing that she does this, but she says her entire life story, says how presentation went in book 1, where she presented herself to Violet. Why would you present yourself to a human? No, they present themselves to us, so we can decide if we should allow them to continue on threshing or turn them into char marks. and the Irids all gasp. I'm the eldest of my den in Navarre, and there was no other to object to my right of benefaction. And they're like, why did you participate in harvest? I can't believe you bonded as a juvenile. She explains that when Violet was attacked in book 1, she slowed down time. And they're like, you used your juvenile gift for a human? For my human, she's a part of me as I am of her. You undervalue our connection. And Andarna says, do you not bond with humans? And I'm like, what humans? Andarna, you can see this island is empty. What humans would they bond with? They're like, we don't live with humans. Andarna asks, so is it just the 6 of you? And they said, no, there's hundreds of us. She talks to them about war games and how Liam, remember Liam in book 1, they all flew into battle together. Liam ended up dying. Violet channeled my power. She slowed time so that we could strike, but it was too much magic to channel. And I was small, and so I had to end up in the dreamless sleep. She brings it around to present day. Several hours later, they've all stopped asking questions. They lie in eerie silence as she finishes. That's why we're here, Andarna says, to ask if you'll come home to fight with us, to see if the knowledge was passed down of how the Venin were defeated during the Great War, or if you know how to cure them, and I'd like to know about my family. And the dragons look at Violet and they're like, so you took a juvenile dragon to war and allowed her to channel? And Andarna's like, it was my choice. They're like, yeah, show us your wing, because Andarna has a messed up wing. And she's like, yeah, it's a little busted, but it's worse right now because I'm so tired from flying. And they're like, we have seen enough. I'm just missing a second set of muscles and can't carry Violet. And so they're like, yeah, okay, we need a moment of privacy. So they go talk amongst each other. Then they come back and Andarna's like, so you were just testing me, right? To see if I'm fit to visit our den? And they're like, we were never testing you. We were testing your human, your dragon rider. And your human failed. Taryn growls at this. The fact that you defend her actions is a testament to their failure as a society. One of the Irids says to Andarna, Violet loves me. She uses you. She took advantage of a vulnerable child. She used your power as an instrument for warfare, forced your premature growth, and look what you've become. You think I'm broken, Andarna says. We think you're a weapon. Thank you, says Andarna. It wasn't a compliment. Our breed is born for peace, not violence like the others. You were left behind as the criterion, the measurement of their growth, their ability to choose tranquility and harmony with all living things. We'd hoped you'd return to us to tell us that the humans had evolved, that they had blossomed under the ward stones and no longer used magic as a weapon, but instead you have shown us the opposite. And dragonkind has not learned their lesson either. So then they turn to Riddick and his dragon and they're like, you gifted your human ice. And Riddick's like, that's not how signets work. And then they turn back to Andarna and they say, and you, our very hope, have handed this human something far more dangerous to wield, haven't you? So that's the question is, okay, Andarna's special signet power she gave Violet when she was a Feathertail was the ability to stop time. What is the special signet power now? And that is where we are going to leave off. So I want to stress that out of all of this, a lot of this still doesn't make a lot of sense. And a lot of it is constantly setting up so that everybody else is either mean and dumb to make Violet look good and smart. But I still had more fun checking out the islands than I have ever had in this series. So this was better than all the other parts of this book and all the other parts of this series, but still really not good. And I can see that we're trying to fix things here. We're trying to fix stuff with the religion and even with Violet, being a portrayal of EDS, and we're trying to bring in Xaden's family and all kinds of stuff. But I feel like maybe it's just a little too late and we should have fixed those things before we hit publish on the first book. Out of all of the dragons, I think that the Irids make the most sense though. If anything, I'm on their side. I just think that we have lost our trajectory here. We're doing too much and also not at all. Not enough at all. Nothing at all. So that was ONYX Storm Part 2. Out of all of the pieces of this book series, this is the least bad and the bar is in hell. Alright, if you made it this far, leave a dragon emoji again and I will see you for Part 3. I'm exhausted. I need a nap after this. I've drank 2 monsters already today and I'm thinking about going and getting a third. Woof. Thanks so much for watching. Comments and questions go down below. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Me too. Are we gonna get answers? Probably not. All right, see you next time. Bye. Hi, before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Beck, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, Jade, Jill, John E, Jory, Julie, Kai Brecker has not read Six of Crows, Kalaine OK, Katya, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Other Lex, Lily, Maddie Miss, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Mixer Boneless, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Peggy Lou Who, Piloting SRN, Rain, Ree, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Steph B, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Urchin Audrey, and White Raven 13. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. Huge thank you to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, Aaron, Alejandra, Alicia, Bobisha, Banana, Fofana, Fofisha. What are we doing, Alicia? Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry, Baywing, Beck, Blue Moon Syrup, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bridget 108, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate, Kathy, Celeste, Che, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Fox Waifu, Francis, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Hurry Singh, JM Tennant, Jackalope Max, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jesse Ives, Jessa Sue, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Caitlin M, Katie L, Katrina, Kayla, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, KMTB, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Mataraptor, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, Mima Who, Morgan the Friendly Ghost, Myth Lesbian, NM Rap, Natural Blues, Nicole G, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rach, Rachel B, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ren Flynn, Rhea, Reese, Ronnie, Rosie, Sikoria, Saintbringer, Sakya Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Too Thick to Work Tomorrow, Triple M, Taito Phoenix, and Unicorn Jenny. Thank you all so much for being a friend.